Hana Kim pressed her face against the cold metal window of the transport ship. Outside, stars moved slowly past like tiny lights in the darkness. She had never seen so many stars before. Back on Earth, the lights from Seoul made it hard to see the night sky clearly. "Stop staring and sit down," her brother Taemin said from the seat behind her. "We will be there soon." Hana did not move away from the window. She was too excited to sit still. After 2 years of studying and tests, she was finally going to the Galactic Academy. 23 students from Earth were chosen to study with aliens from hundreds of different worlds. She was the youngest student picked for the program. The transport ship shook a little as it slowed down. Through the window, Hana could see something huge ahead of them. At first, it looked like a small moon. But as they got closer, she could see it was made of metal and glass. Lights blinked on and off across its surface like a city that never sleeps. "Look at that," whispered So Young Choi, the girl sitting next to Hana. "It is bigger than any building on Earth." The Galactic Academy was not just big. It was enormous. The space station was shaped like a giant wheel, slowly turning in space. Ships of all sizes moved around it like busy insects. Some ships were long and thin like needles. Others were round like bubbles. A few looked like they were made of crystal that caught the light from nearby stars. Daewon Lee, who was chosen as the leader of their group, stood up in the front of the ship. He was older than most of them, and always tried to keep everyone calm. "Remember what they told us on Earth," he said. "We are the first humans to study here. We must show them that humans can learn and work with other species." The ship docked with a soft bump. Hana felt her stomach jump with excitement and fear. She had studied about alien species in school, but she had never met one in person. What would they look like? Would they be friendly? Would they think humans were smart enough to study with them? The door of their ship opened with a hiss. Cool air rushed in, carrying strange smells that Hana could not name. They walked through a tunnel that connected their ship to the station. The walls were covered with symbols and writing in languages that hurt her eyes to look at. Then they entered the main hall of the academy. Hana stopped walking and stared. The room was so big that she could not see the ceiling. Students from dozens of different worlds moved through the space. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others had 4 legs or 6 or moved without legs at all. Near the entrance, a group of students looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbows on the walls around them. When they talked, their voices sounded like wind chimes. Further away, she saw students that looked like they belonged in the ocean. Their skin was blue-green and wet-looking. Fins grew from their arms and backs. They wore special suits filled with water so they could breathe. But the strangest students were the ones that did not have solid bodies at all. They looked like clouds of colored light that floated through the air. Sometimes they would change shape, becoming tall and thin, then short and round. When they talked, the colors inside them would flash and dance. "Do not stare," Taemin said quietly, taking Hana's arm. "It is rude," but Hana could not help herself. Everything was new and amazing. She had spent her whole life around other humans. Now she was surrounded by beings she had only seen in pictures and videos. A tall figure approached their group. At first, Hana thought it was wearing strange armor. Then she realized the hard, shiny surface was its skin. The alien looked like a giant insect that could stand on 2 legs. Its head had large eyes like black mirrors, and its mouth was full of moving parts that clicked when it spoke. "Welcome, humans," the alien said. Its voice was deep and buzzed like a machine. "I am Instructor Vexithara. I will show you to your rooms and explain the rules of this academy." The human students stayed close together as they followed the instructor through the station. Other alien students stopped to stare at them. Some pointed and made sounds that might have been laughter. Others just watched with curious eyes. "You are smaller than I expected," Instructor Vexithara said as they walked. "Your species is very young. Most students here come from civilizations that have traveled between stars for thousands of years. Humans have barely left their home planet." Hana felt her cheeks get hot. She wanted to say that humans were not stupid or weak, but Daewon had told them to be polite and listen more than they talked. They passed through hallways lined with classrooms. Through open doors, Hana could see alien students working with tools and machines she did not understand. In one room, crystal students were making music by changing the light inside their bodies. In another, the water-breathing students were building something that floated in a tank of liquid. "Your classes will be with students from many different worlds," the instructor explained. "You will study biology, physics, history, and culture. but do not expect special treatment because you are new. The galaxy does not wait for slow learners. They reached a section of the station where the human students would live. The rooms were small but comfortable. Hana would share a room with So Young. Through their window they could see Earth in the distance, a small blue dot among the stars. That night, as Hana lay in her new bed, she could hear strange sounds through the walls. Alien students talking in languages that sounded like music or wind or water. She was scared and excited at the same time. Tomorrow, her real education would begin. She did not know that in just a few days she would face something that would change how the entire galaxy thought about humans, something that was supposed to teach her about fear, but would instead teach everyone else about the strange courage that humans carried in their hearts. 3 days passed before Hana started to feel comfortable at the academy. The alien students were not mean, but they were not friendly either. They looked at the humans like they were children who did not belong in adult classes. In physics class, when Hana tried to answer a question, the crystal students made soft chiming sounds. She learned later that this was how they laughed. Her answer was correct, but they thought it was funny that such a simple answer came from a human. During mealtime, the humans sat together at their own table. The food was strange, but not bad. Some of it moved on the plate until you put it in your mouth. Other food changed colors while you ate it. Hana tried everything, but she missed the taste of rice and kimchi from home. I heard some of the older students talking. So Young whispered during lunch. They said humans will not last a month here. They think we are too weak and stupid. Let them think what they want, Taemin said, but Hana could see he was angry. We will prove them wrong. Daewon nodded. We just need to work harder than everyone else. Show them that humans can learn. But Hana was not sure hard work would be enough. In every class, she saw how much more the alien students knew. They had technology that seemed like magic. They could do math in their heads that would take humans hours with computers. Some could even talk to each other without making sounds, just by changing the colors of their skin. The worst part was that the teachers seemed to agree with the other students. They gave the humans easier questions and simpler tasks. When Hana tried to do the same work as everyone else, they told her it was too hard for her species. On the 4th day, Instructor Vexthera made an announcement that changed everything. Hana was in xenobiology class, her favorite subject. She loved learning about life on different planets. The classroom was large and round, with seats arranged in circles around a central space where the teacher could show them things. Today, there were more students than usual. The crystal beings sat in one section, their bodies creating soft light that made rainbow patterns on the walls. The water breathers sat in special chairs filled with liquid. The energy beings floated near the ceiling like colorful clouds. All the human students sat together in the back. Hana noticed that other students kept looking at them and making sounds to each other. Something was different today. Instructor Vexthera walked to the center of the room. Her hard shell reflected the light from the crystal students. Today we will do something special, she announced. A fear response study. The alien students became more excited. They made clicking, humming, and flashing sounds of anticipation. Hana did not understand what was happening, but she could feel that this was important. Fear is something all intelligent life shares, the instructor continued. No matter how advanced a species becomes, they still feel fear when faced with a true predator. Today, you will each face something that your deepest instincts will recognize as dangerous. She gestured with one of her arms toward a large metal box in the corner of the room. Hana had not noticed it before. It was covered with warning symbols in dozens of different languages. Inside this container is a creature from the death world of Kethmoran. It is called a Void Stalker. This creature has evolved to be the perfect killer. It does not just hunt with teeth and claws. It attacks the mind itself, filling its prey with terror so complete that they cannot move or think. The crystal students chimed softly with excitement. The water breathers made bubbling sounds. Even the energy beings pulsed with brighter colors. Every species that has faced a Void Stalker has the same response. Vexthara continued. Fear so strong that they become helpless. This is not shameful. It is the natural response of intelligent life when faced with death itself. Hana felt her stomach tighten with worry. She looked around and saw that the other human students looked scared too. So Young was gripping the edge of her chair. Taemin was staring at the metal box like it might explode. Of course, the instructor added, this is perfectly safe. The creature is contained within a force field. It cannot actually hurt you. But your mind will not know this. Your instincts will tell you that you are about to die. She began setting up equipment around the container. Machines with screens and blinking lights were arranged in a circle. These will measure your biological responses: heart rate, brain activity, stress hormones. We will record how each species reacts to facing their ultimate predator. The alien students were practically vibrating with excitement now. Hana realized that they had done this before. This was some kind of traditional lesson that all academy students went through. We will start with our most advanced students, Vexithera announced, then work our way down to the more primitive species. Hana felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. The instructor was making it clear that humans would go last because they were considered the least advanced. The first student called forward was one of the energy beings. Its name was something Hana could not pronounce, but it sounded like the sound of lightning. The being floated down to the center of the room, its colors shifting to deeper, more serious shades. Instructor Vexithera activated the container. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the metal walls became transparent, showing what was inside. Hana gasped. The creature was huge, easily 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in scales that were so dark they seemed to absorb light. It had 6 limbs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Its head was like a nightmare version of a snake, with eyes that burned with purple fire. But the worst part was not how it looked. The worst part was how it made Hana feel just by being there. Even through the force field, even knowing it could not hurt her, she felt terror creep up her spine like ice water. The energy being that was supposed to be brave and advanced began to shake. Its colors went from bright to dim in seconds. Its form, which had been solid and controlled, started to spread out and become fuzzy around the edges. The creature in the container turned its burning eyes toward the student. It did not move, but somehow Hana could feel it pushing something invisible and horrible into the mind of the energy being. The student lasted 15 seconds before it fled back to its seat, its colors flashing in patterns that looked like panic. Next came a crystal student. The result was the same. The moment the Void Stalker looked at her, her bright crystal body turned dark and dim. She tried to stay calm, but within half a minute she was backing away, making high-pitched sounds of fear. One by one, students from different species faced the creature: the water breathers, the insect-like species, the ones that looked like living metal, the ones that seemed to be made of gas and starlight. Every single one had the same reaction. First, they would try to be brave. Then the Void Stalker would turn its attention to them, and the fear would hit like a wave. Some students ran away immediately. Others tried to fight the feeling but gave up within minutes. A few became so terrified they could not move at all and had to be helped back to their seats. Hana watched it all with growing dread. If students from advanced species could not handle this creature, what would happen to the humans? They were supposed to be primitive and weak. Would they embarrass themselves completely? Fascinating, Instructor Vexithera said as she recorded each reaction. As expected, every species shows the same fundamental response. Intelligence means nothing when faced with a true apex predator. Fear is the great equalizer. Then she looked toward the back of the room where the humans sat. Now, she announced with what sounded like satisfaction, let us see how the most primitive species handles a real predator. The entire class turned to stare at the humans. Some alien students made sounds that might have been excited whispers. Others leaned forward to get a better view. Hana felt every eye in the room on her and her classmates. Her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone could hear it. Soon, one of them would have to walk down there and face the thing that had terrified every other student. She had no idea that she was about to make galactic history. Instructor Vexithera looked at the list of human students on her datapad. Her black mirror eyes reflected the light from the force field as she made her choice. Hana Kim, she announced. You will go first. Hana felt her blood turn cold. Around the classroom, alien students made excited sounds. Some leaned forward in their seats to get a better view. Others held recording devices to capture what they expected would be the most extreme fear response yet. Go on, Taimin whispered, putting his hand on her shoulder. You can do this, but Hana was not sure she could. Her legs felt weak as she stood up. Every step toward the center of the classroom felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. The other human students watched with worried faces. So Young looked like she might cry. The Void Stalker sensed movement. Its massive head turned toward Hana as she approached. Those burning purple eyes locked onto her, and she felt the wave of fear hit her like a physical blow. Her heart started beating so fast it hurt. Her hands began to shake. The creature was enormous and terrible, like something from the worst nightmare she had ever had. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run away as fast as she could. But something strange happened. Instead of running, Hana stopped walking and took a deep breath. The fear was still there, stronger than anything she had ever felt. But underneath it, she felt something else. Curiosity. She looked at the creature more carefully. Yes, it was scary. Yes, every part of her mind was telling her it was dangerous, but it was also the most amazing animal she had ever seen. The way its scales reflected light made them look like pieces of black glass. The muscles under its skin moved in ways that showed perfect balance and control. Its 6 limbs were positioned exactly right for hunting in any direction. This was not just a monster. This was evolution's perfect creation. Hana took another step closer to the force field. The alien students made sounds of surprise. Even Instructor Vexathara's mandibles clicked with confusion. No student had ever moved toward the Voidstalker before. The creature seemed as surprised as everyone else. It had turned its mental attack up to full power, flooding Hana's mind with images of death and pain. But the small human just kept looking at it with interest instead of terror. Hana noticed something the others had missed. There was an old wound on the creature's left side, a long scar that had healed badly. The way it moved showed that the injury still caused pain. This perfect predator was hurting. "It's injured," she said softly, not really talking to anyone in particular. She placed her hand against the force field as close to the creature as she could get. The Voidstalker stared at her hand. In thousands of years of existence, it had never seen prey do anything like this. Every living thing it had ever encountered had either run away or frozen in terror. This tiny being was doing neither. The creature tried its mental attack again, pushing harder. It filled Hana's mind with visions of being hunted, of teeth and claws, of darkness and death. But instead of becoming more afraid, Hana seemed to become more calm. "I know you're trying to scare me," she said quietly, "but I can see that you're scared too." Around the classroom, students and teachers sat in complete silence. What they were watching had never happened before in the history of the Galactic Academy. A primitive species was not only resisting a Voidstalker's psychic attack, but was showing compassion for the creature. The Voidstalker stopped its mental assault. For the first time in its life, it was confused. This small being was not acting like prey. She was not trying to hurt it or escape from it. She was looking at it the way a parent might look at an injured child. Hana studied the creature's face. Behind the burning eyes and sharp teeth, she could see something that reminded her of animals she had known on Earth. Stray dogs that barked and growled because they were afraid. Wildcats that hissed because they had been hurt by humans before. Even dangerous animals were just trying to survive in a world that often hurt them. "You don't really want to hurt anyone," she said to the creature. "You're just doing what you were made to do. But nobody ever taught you that some beings might want to understand you instead of fear you." The Voidstalker tilted its massive head, watching her with something that looked almost like curiosity. Its mental attacks had completely stopped. Instead of projecting fear, it seemed to be trying to understand what this strange little being was thinking. Slowly, carefully, the creature moved closer to the force field. Its burning eyes stayed locked on Hana's face, but now there was no threat in its gaze. It was studying her the same way she was studying it. Other students in the classroom started to whisper in their various languages. Some sounded excited, others frightened. A few teachers had entered the room after hearing about what was happening. They stood in the doorway, not believing what they were seeing. Instructor Vexathara checked her instruments with shaking hands. The readings made no sense. The human's fear response had peaked in the first few seconds, then dropped to almost normal levels. Meanwhile, the Voidstalker's aggression indicators had gone completely flat. "How is this possible?" she muttered to herself. The creature reached out with one of its 6 limbs and touched the force field from its side. Hana kept her hand pressed against the field from her side. They were as close as the barrier would allow, predator and prey looking at each other with mutual curiosity instead of fear and hunger. "What's your name?" Hana asked softly. "I know you can't tell me, but you have to have a name. Everything that lives deserves a name." The Voidstalker made a sound it had never made before. Not a growl or a roar, but something almost like a purr, deep and quiet like distant thunder. "I'll call you Shadow," Hana decided, "because you're dark and beautiful and because shadows aren't really scary once you understand what makes them." The creature seemed to like this name. It made the purring sound again, and its eyes seemed to glow a little less harshly. Hana stayed by the force field for several more minutes, just watching Shadow and letting Shadow watch her. The fear was still there in the back of her mind, but it was mixed with wonder and something that felt almost like friendship. Finally, Instructor Vexithera found her voice. "Return to your seat," she said, but her tone was different now. Not commanding, but almost respectful. As Hana walked back to join the other humans, every eye in the room followed her. The alien students were no longer making sounds of amusement. They looked shocked and confused. Some seemed almost frightened of her, as if she had done something impossible. Shadow watched her go, then settled down near the wall of its container closest to where she had been standing. It had stopped trying to frighten anyone. Instead, it seemed to be thinking about the small being who had looked at it with kindness instead of terror. "What just happened?" So Young whispered as Hana sat down. Hana was not sure how to answer. She felt shaky and tired, like she had just run a long race. But she also felt proud of herself in a way she could not explain. "I think," she said quietly, "I just made a friend." Behind them, other students were talking in excited whispers. Teachers were gathering near the instructor's desk, looking at the data from their instruments and shaking their heads in disbelief. For the first time since arriving at the academy, the humans were not being ignored. But now, instead of thinking they were too weak and primitive, everyone was wondering if maybe they had been wrong about humans altogether. The Void Stalker, that was supposed to prove how helpless all intelligent life was in the face of a true predator, had instead discovered something new, a species that could look past fear and see the individual behind the monster. And that was going to change everything. The xenobiology class ended in chaos. Students from different species gathered in small groups, making excited sounds in their own languages. Teachers huddled around Instructor Vexithara's data screens, pointing at numbers and graphs that made no sense to them. Hana just wanted to leave. She felt tired and confused by what had happened, but as she tried to walk out with the other humans, alien students blocked her path. They stared at her with eyes of every color and shape, making sounds she did not understand. "What did you do to it?" asked a crystal student, her voice chiming with confusion. "Void stalkers do not behave that way. They are pure predators. They know only hunger and the hunt." "I did not do anything," Hana said quietly. "I just looked at it." "But you were not afraid," said one of the water breathers through his suit's speaker. "Every species feels the terror. It is biological law. How can a primitive species resist what we cannot?" Before Hana could answer, Instructor Vexithara's voice cut through the noise. "All students return to your normal activities. Classes are dismissed for today." The alien students moved away slowly, still staring at Hana and whispering to each other. But as they left, Hana noticed something different in how they looked at her. Before, they had seen her as weak and unimportant. Now they seemed almost afraid of her. The human students walked back to their living area together. None of them spoke until they were safely inside Hana's room with the door closed. "What was that?" Taemin asked, sitting heavily on Hana's bed. "What did you do in there?" "I told you I did not do anything special," Hana said, but even as she said it, she knew it was not completely true. Something had happened between her and Shadow, something she did not fully understand yet. The creature stopped attacking, Day One said, pacing back and forth in the small room. "It actually seemed to like you. That should be impossible." So Young was looking at her datapad, reading news feeds from around the academy. "Everyone is talking about it," she said. "The story is spreading to other stations. Some professors are saying it proves humans have evolved special psychic defenses. But I do not feel psychic," Hana said. "I was scared. Really scared. I don't know. I looked past the fear and saw something else." That evening, Hana could not sleep. She kept thinking about Shadow, alone in its container. Did it understand? What had happened between them? Was it confused by meeting someone who was not afraid of it? She decided to go back to the xenobiology lab. The corridors of the academy were dimly lit at night, and most students were in their rooms. Security systems tracked her movement but did not stop her. Students were allowed to visit the labs for extra study time. The lab was dark except for the glow from Shadow's container. The force field cast purple light on the walls, and she could see the creature's silhouette inside. It was not moving around like a trapped animal. Instead, it sat near the wall closest to the door, as if it had been waiting for someone. When Hana entered the room, Shadow's head turned immediately toward her. Its burning eyes met hers, and she felt that same moment of connection they had shared earlier. "Hello again," she said softly, walking to the force field. "I hope you do not mind that I came back. I kept thinking about you." Shadow moved to the wall of its container, placing one of its claws against the force field at the same spot where Hana put her hand. They were separated by energy and metal, but somehow it felt like they were touching. "You know, back on Earth, humans have always lived with dangerous animals," Hana said, settling down on the floor so she could be more comfortable. "At first we were afraid of them too. Wolves, bears, big cats. They could kill us easily." Shadow tilted its head, listening to her voice. It made that soft purring sound again. But some humans learned to see past the fear. They realized that these animals were not evil. They were just trying to survive like us. So we found ways to live together. Wolves became dogs. Wild horses became partners. Even animals that stayed wild learned that some humans could be trusted. The creature moved closer to the force field. Its massive form should have been terrifying, but Hana found it beautiful instead. Every line of its body showed perfect design, millions of years of evolution creating the ultimate hunter. "I think you have been alone for a long time," she continued. "Everywhere you go, everyone runs away from you. You probably think that is just how life works. Predator and prey, hunter and hunted. But it does not have to be that way." Shadow made a different sound, lower and sadder. It pressed its face against the force field, and for a moment, Hana could see something almost human in its burning eyes: loneliness. "You are lonely too," she realized. "Being the perfect predator means never having anyone who is not afraid of you. That must be terrible." The creature nodded. Actually nodded, like it understood every word she was saying. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while. Shadow seemed content just to have someone nearby who was not trying to run away or hurt it. Hana felt peaceful in a way she had not since arriving at the academy. "Hana?" She turned to see Instructor Vexithara in the doorway. The alien teacher moved carefully into the room, her compound eyes fixed on the interaction between human and Voidstalker. "You should not be here alone," Vexithara said. "It is dangerous." "No, it is not," Hana replied calmly. "Shadow would not hurt me." "Shadow?" The instructor's mandibles clicked with surprise. "You named it?" "Everything deserves a name, even predators." Vexithara studied the scene before her. The Voidstalker, which should have been projecting waves of terror, was calm and peaceful. It had actually moved protectively closer to Hana when the instructor entered, as if it saw her as a friend to be defended. "I have been studying Voidstalkers for 40 years, Vexithara said quietly. "I have never seen behavior like this. They are driven by instinct alone. They should not be capable of forming bonds with other species." "Maybe they just never had the chance before," Hana suggested. "If everyone always runs away, how could they learn to be friends with anyone?" The instructor was quiet for a long time, watching as Shadow gently touched the force field where Hana's hand was pressed. Finally, she spoke again. "The Academy Council wants to see you tomorrow," she said. "Word of what happened has reached the highest levels of galactic education. Some species are demanding to know how humans can resist psychic predation. Others think you might have some kind of natural immunity that could be studied." Hana felt her stomach tighten with worry. "Am I in trouble?" "No," Vexithara said, and her tone was different than it had been before, more respectful. "But you have done something that challenges everything we thought we knew about predator-prey relationships. The galaxy wants answers." She paused, then added something that surprised Hana completely. "I think you might be giving them the wrong answers but asking the right questions." After the instructor left, Hana spent a few more minutes with Shadow. The creature seemed sad. To see her go, making soft sounds as she walked toward the door. "I will come back," she promised. "And maybe tomorrow people will start to understand what I think I am beginning to figure out." As she walked back to her room, Hana thought about what Vexithara had said. The galaxy wanted to know how humans could resist fear. But that was not the right question. The right question was, what if the fear was not the problem? What if the problem was that everyone stopped at the fear instead of looking at what was behind it? Tomorrow she would have to try to explain that to some of the most advanced minds in the galaxy. She just hoped they would be ready to listen. Behind her in the xenobiology lab, Shadow settled down to sleep. For the first time in its long and lonely life, it dreamed of friendship instead of the hunt. The Academy Council chamber was the largest room Hana had ever seen. It was shaped like a giant sphere, with seats for representatives from hundreds of different species arranged in rings that went up and up until they disappeared in the shadows near the ceiling. Hana stood in the center of the room, feeling very small. Around her, beings from across the galaxy stared down with eyes of every shape and color imaginable. Some whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music, others like static, others like the wind through trees. "State your name for the record," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Hana Kim," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "From Earth." A ripple of sounds moved through the chamber. She could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. Many of these beings still thought of humans as primitive creatures who had barely learned to leave their own planet. "You are here because of an incident involving a void stalker," the voice continued. "Please explain what happened." Hana took a deep breath. She had practiced what to say, but now, facing hundreds of the most advanced minds in the galaxy, her words seemed small and inadequate. "I was in xenobiology class," she began. "The instructor wanted to show us how all intelligent species react to facing a perfect predator. Students from many different worlds were brought forward to face the void stalker. Every one of them became very afraid and ran away or froze with terror." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Then it was my turn." "And what happened when you faced the creature?" "I was afraid too," Hana admitted. "More afraid than I have ever been. But I did not run away. I looked at the creature and tried to understand what I was seeing." "Impossible," said a voice from one of the upper rings. "Void stalkers attack the mind directly. No species can resist their psychic assault." "I did not resist it," Hana explained. "I felt the fear. But I also saw past it. The creature was not evil or cruel. It was just doing what evolution designed it to do. And underneath all that terrifying power, I could see that it was hurt and lonely." The chamber erupted with sounds of disbelief. Representatives stood up in their seats, arguing with each other in dozens of languages. Some seemed angry, others confused, others excited. Finally, the main voice called for order. "You claim you felt compassion for a void stalker?" "Yes," Hana said simply. "This is biological impossibility," declared another representative. "Compassion requires higher brain function. When faced with a psychic predator, all higher thinking shuts down. Only base survival instincts remain." "Maybe that is true for other species," said a familiar voice. Hana turned to see Instructor Vexithara walking into the chamber. "But humans appear to be different." The instructor moved to stand near Hana. "I have spent the last day reviewing all available data on human evolution. What I found explains everything." She activated a holographic display that showed images of Earth's history. Most species evolved on worlds where the biggest threats came from natural disasters, disease, or competition for resources. When they developed intelligence, they used it to overcome these challenges through technology. The images changed to show various alien species and their homeworlds. But humans evolved differently. Their planet was filled with apex predators, giant carnivores that could kill them easily. Instead of simply developing technology to avoid these creatures, humans learned to coexist with them. New images appeared, showing humans with wolves, horses, and other animals. They domesticated their predators, turned enemies into allies. This required a unique form of intelligence, one that could feel fear but also see past it to understand the individual behind the threat. "Ridiculous," said a representative from the crystal species. "No intelligent being chooses to approach what could kill them." "Humans do it all the time," Vexithara replied. "Their history is full of individuals who chose to understand rather than simply fear." They have people who work with the most dangerous animals on their planet, not because they are not afraid, but because they can see past the fear to find connection. She turned to address the entire chamber. We have been asking the wrong question. We wanted to know how humans resist fear, but they do not resist it. They acknowledge it, then choose to act with compassion anyway. The chamber fell quiet as the representatives considered this. Finally, someone asked the question Hannah had been hoping for. What does this mean for our understanding of predator-prey relationships? It means, Hannah said, finding her voice again, that maybe the relationship does not have to be just predator and prey. Maybe it could be something else. She thought of Shadow waiting in the lab. The Void Stalker I met has probably never had anyone not be afraid of it. Its whole existence has been about being alone and making others run away. But when I did not run, something changed. It became curious instead of aggressive. It wanted to understand me just like I wanted to understand it. You suggest that we could communicate with Void Stalkers? Asked a representative with a voice like wind chimes. I think we already are, Hannah replied. Shadow responds to my voice. It recognizes me when I visit. It even seems happy to see me. These are not the behaviors of a mindless predator. These are the behaviors of an intelligent being who has been lonely for a very long time. The discussion that followed went on for hours. Representatives argued about the implications of Hannah's discovery. Some insisted it was impossible. Others wondered if it could change how they dealt with other dangerous species. Finally, the main voice spoke again. Hannah Kim, the Academy Council has decided to approve a new field of study. We will call it empathic xenobiology. You will be the first student enrolled in this program. Hannah felt her heart jump with excitement. What does that mean? It means, Instructor Vexithara said with what might have been a smile, that you will work directly with species that have been considered too dangerous to study closely. You will try to understand them not as threats to be avoided, but as individuals to be known. And the first subject of your study will be your friend Shadow, added the council voice. We want to learn everything possible about human-void stalker interaction. 6 months later, Hannah stood in a much larger lab, watching Shadow move freely in an expanded habitat. The force field was still there, but it was much weaker now. Strong enough to prevent accidents, but not strong enough to make Shadow feel trapped. The creature had grown sleeker and healthier with better food and care. More importantly, it had learned to interact not just with Hannah, but with several other researchers who had learned to approach it without fear. Look at this, said Dr. Chen Wei, a human xenobiologist who had come from Earth to join the program. He showed Hannah a recording of Shadow working with puzzle-solving exercises. Its intelligence level is far higher than anyone suspected. When it is not focused on hunting, it shows problem-solving abilities comparable to most sapient species. Other students had joined the program too. Not just humans, but alien students who wanted to learn this new way of studying dangerous species. They called themselves empathic xenobiologists, and their research was changing how the galaxy understood the relationship between different forms of life. How do you feel about becoming famous across the galaxy? So Young asked that evening as they walked through the academy corridors. Hannah laughed. I did not try to become famous. I just tried to make a friend. But she knew that what had started as friendship had become something much bigger. The galaxy was beginning to learn that fear did not have to be the end of the story. With understanding and compassion, even the most dangerous predator could become a teacher, a partner, or a friend. That night, as she did every night, Hannah visited Shadow in the lab. The great creature always seemed happy to see her, making its soft purring sound and gently touching the barrier that separated them. Tomorrow, the council is going to vote on whether to try your approach with other dangerous species, she told Shadow. They want to see if what worked with you might work with other creatures too. Shadow tilted its massive head and made a questioning sound. No, you are still special, Hannah assured it. You were the first to teach us that predators and prey can be more than just afraid of each other. You showed us that even the scariest monsters might just be lonely individuals, waiting for someone brave enough to say hello. Outside the lab windows, the lights of Earth were visible in the distance. Hannah thought about her home planet, where humans had spent millions of years learning to turn wolves into dogs and wild horses into partners. Now that same gift for empathy was spreading across the galaxy, one friendship at a time. She pressed her hand against the barrier, and Shadow pressed back from the other side. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new species to understand. But tonight, a human and a void stalker sat together in comfortable companionship, proving that the universe was full of friends waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look past their fears. The beast that was meant to scare the class had instead taught the galaxy that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose to understand instead of run away. And that lesson was going to change everything.